Hey, welcome back. Jonathan Powell here. And what I'm going to do, I'm pretty much going to expand upon what Jermaine talked about with chord progressions and teach you some advanced things that you can do to spice up your playing and different things, just with some technical techniques that you can apply to every key. Now, let's look at one of the most basic chord progressions, like a 2-5-1. There's a lot of different ways that you can play it, but, there's one key thing that you need to remember, that the harmonization rule, as far as every tone, there's a certain chord that you can play out for every tone. And that's what I do for every single chord progression. That's how I think, and that's how I come up with a lot of advanced chord progressions, because I use that mindset as well as the understanding with the scale and how to extend the chords. Say, for example, the 2-5-1 in the key of C. Okay? The 2 would be D, the 5 would be G, and the 1 would be C. You should know that. This is the basics of chord progressions that Jermaine taught you. Now, the 2 is going to be minor, the 5 is going to be a dominant chord, and then the 1 is going to be major. So that's the first thing I figure out. Now, what I do off the 2, I play this particular voicing. I have F, A, C, and E in my left hand, and this is a breakdown of a basic, pretty much D minor 9 chord. So since I know that the D is going to be minor in the 2-5-1, just the most basic approach, then okay, I can say, let me extend the chord and add some flavor. So I add the 7, and I add the 9, and the D is in the bass, so I just leave that out, and this is how I get my left hand chord. Now, as far as my right hand chord, these are techniques that I showed you in chord counting, but just to refresh you, I play triad chords in my right hand chord. So pretty much, if you know that the 2 is D, what I do, I count down a whole step down from that, which will be C. Also, the key that we technically would be in. So I'll play that triad in my right hand. So the first thing you can do in the 2-5-1 is play the minor 9 in your left hand, and then play the whole step down from that D, and that's C, and then you'll play a C major triad in your right hand, okay? Okay, and that's the first start. Then I will go to G, and I will play F, A, B, and E. And simply all it's really doing is taking the C that we had on the 2 and lowering that to B. So now we have F, A, and B, and E in my left hand. And this is off the 5. So talking about the 5 chord, we know that this is going to be some type of, it could be a major chord, or it could be like a dominant sounding chord. When I say dominant, that means the 7th will be flatted. So in this particular case, this F gives you the dominant sound. All right, so we got F, A, B, and E. So over G, this is the 7th of G. This is the 2 of G, or the 9. This is the 3rd, and this is the 13th. Now that's a G9 with an added 6, but it could be called a 6 or a 13th, but for the purpose of this course and how we're teaching it, we're going to call it a 6. So once again, this is the chord, and it doesn't matter. If you find the first chord pretty much off the 2, finding the next chord is real easy, because all you have to do is take the 3rd note, in this particular case, which is C. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 notes in the chord. All you got to do is take the 3rd note and lower it, or flat it, and then change your bass to G. Now, from D to G, going up, it's a 4th apart. Okay? So we're kind of using a circle of 4ths. So, and what Jermaine told you, so we're going from D to G, and then all you're doing is lowering that 3rd note when you leave the 2. So in your right hand, what you can play is this. It's a quarter chord. Jermaine explained this. We have B, we have E, and we have A. So when you get to the 5th tone, which is G, in the 2-5-1 chord progression, how you find your right hand chord will be to start from the 3rd degree of the 5th. Okay? I don't want to confuse you. Now, when I say that, you're going to start from the 3rd degree of that scale, of the G major scale. And the 3rd degree of G will be B. Okay? That's the 3rd degree, or the 3rd tone of the G major scale. So from here, you use the circle of fours, and you pretty much use it twice. So what's a fourth away? And if you look at the giant clock that Jermaine talked about, what's a fourth away from B? It's E, okay? Then you do it one more time, and then now we have A. A is a fourth away from E. So that's what you do in your right hand. So this is going from the 2 to the 5, and then to the 1. Now after 1, I showed you a lot of different voicings for major chords, and this is one in particular. We have E, G, A, and B in my left hand, and in my right hand we have D, G, and B, D, and G. And you can take the polychord technique and come up with a lot of different voicings. But I recommend that if you don't understand the polychord technique, go back to chord counting, because I explain all that, how to make a lot of different voicings. So pretty much knowing the basics as far as the kind of chords that you can play off of every tone is really going to help you to be able to create these advanced chords and voicings, because you have the foundation. Now the next step would be to learn how to extend the chords and how to use the different voicings, and that's where having a real good understanding of chord counting comes in. So that's one way, and that's an example of how to do that. Let's look at a 1-4-5 chord progression, okay? Okay, let's look at it in the key of C. Now, a 1-4-5 chord progression in the key of C will be going from the C to F to G, okay? And there's a lot of different ways that you can go. And this is one. And you can use the same 5 chord that I just showed you too as well. So let's look at the first chord. You know it's going to be major, so there's a lot of different concepts that you can use from the chord counting DVD. And in my left hand I have E, G, A, and B, and in my right hand I have D, G, and B. So I have a C major 9 with an added 6. And all I did was extend it. You know, it depends on how pretty you want it to sound. You know, the more you extend the chord and the more notes you add, you know, it's going to create some different types of sound. And this is a particular voicing that I like. You can invert the chord in your right hand and in your left hand. So if you don't like it down here, you can play it up here. But just mixing and matching, you know, is going to give you some different sounds. So off the 1, there's a lot of things that you can do, okay? So we got E, G, A, and B, and in my right hand I have D, E, G, and B. Now when you get to the 4, you can take the same concept. And what I have in my left hand is E, G, A, and C. And in my right hand, I have G, A, C, and E. And really, this is really what it is, how I think about this chord, as well as the chord over the 1. Really, it's 2 chords mixed together. It's like kind of having an A minor chord and a C major chord mixed together. And that's how I get these chords. So really, if you look at the basic chord, let's look at it. We're going to F. We're going from the 1 to the 4 to the 5. And if you look at the chord, I have F, A, and C. So F is going to be in the bass, so I'm not going to have that in the chord. That's why you don't see it in the chord, because it's the root, and it creates a lot of tension. So what do we have left? We have A and we have C. So the 3rd, I would make that a minor chord. This is the 3rd. If we look at the F major scale, or pretty much the basic F chord, we have the 1, 3, and the 5. So we take the 1 out, and we're left with the 3rd and the 5th. Okay, so the 3rd, I would make that a minor chord, and then the 5, I would make that a major chord. So really, or you can put them together. Like this is an A minor chord, and you can add this. It will be a C major chord just by adding the G. Okay, because E, G, and C, that's a C major chord. But then when you add the A, You have E, A, and C. That's an A minor chord. So really, that's all I do. So when going from the 1, the same concept too. We got the 3 and the 5. We got the E minor chord and the G major chord too as well. So really, that's a quick way to think about it. So when we get to the 4, that's a voicing that you can use. And change it up, you know, according to how you want to hear it. And then when we get to the 5, this is the same chord that I showed you previously in the 2-5-1. So really, having an understanding of the chord voicings is really going to help you to create some different chord voices. All right. So these are like, you know, the more basic chord progressions. Now let's get into some altered chord progressions, like the 7-3-6. Is a very nice chord progression because I really like minor chords because they have more of a contemporary sound, and then you can do a lot with those too as well. So let's look at the 7-3-6 in the key of C. So a 7-3-6, starting off, you're going to go from the 7, which is B, to the 3, which is E, to the 6, which is A. All right? Now this is where things get a little complicated because you really have to understand the scale when doing these particular voicings. So the 7th, okay, that tone is usually going to be diminished or minor. It can be minor too. So what we're going to do, we're going to play a B minor chord, all right? And we're going to play this voicing of it. We have A, C sharp, D and F sharp in my left hand, and in my right hand I have A, C sharp, and E. Okay? And this is a B minor 9. So now, since I knew that it was some type of B minor chord, that's one of my options, I decided to play a B minor 9, and this is a voicing of it that you can use. And in Chord County, I showed you how to construct this voicing too as well. So what you have A, C sharp, D, and F sharp in my left hand. And in my right hand, I have A, C sharp, and E. Now I'm going to go to a 3. Now off the 3, what you can do, you can use a 7 sharp 9 sharp 5 chord. It's a very common chord that can be used as a passing chord to take you like to the 6, or it can take you to the 2. It can take you a lot of different places, but you should really get a good grasp on how to use it because it's going to be very, very good for you. All right, so we got E and D in my left hand, and in my right hand I have G sharp, C, D, and G. All right, so I take this chord and I voice it like this. I have D, G, A flat, and C in my left hand. And in my right hand, I play a C major chord. And this is off the 3. Now, you might say, how is this chord in the key? Well, technically, it's a passing chord. So a lot of passing chords aren't necessarily in the same key as far as the notes that are in the chord. And that's where the tension comes from. That's why it sounds the way it does, because if all the notes were in the key, you know, it wouldn't give you a special sound, you know, that you're looking for as far as the alterations are concerned. So we have an E, 7 with a sharp 9 and sharp 5, and I'll show you the basics of it. I'm kind of backtracking, but I really want you to understand this chord because in chord progressions it's very important. This is a basic E major chord, and you got your 7th, which is D, and then what you do, you got to sharp the 5, which is B. This 5 is B, and you sharp it. And then also you sharp the 9th, which will be F sharp. So that's how we get this chord. So this is basically what I play in my left hand. I move the D down here, let go of that, and then I move the G down here. And I play that in my left hand, and then in my right hand, I play a C major triad. So your right hand chord, if you're doing it off the 3, the sharp 9, sharp 5 chord, whatever key you're in, that's what chords you would play in your right hand. So we're in the key of C, so play a C major chord in your right hand. That only works off the 3. Okay? And then I will go to the A. So I got G, B, C, and E in my left hand, and in my right hand I have G, B, and D. Okay? Now from here, we can go to a 2. Now this is a different version of the 2. I showed you this one at first. But this one is different. It has the dominant sound because of the C. All right? So what I have now is F sharp, B, and C in my left hand, and in my right hand I have E, G sharp, and B. Now this chord is used when you're doing a big circle. Pretty much we started from the 7 to the 3 to the 6. Now if you were to keep going, you can do the 2-5-1. And this is a different version of the 2-5-1. We started with the 7, then we went to the 3, to the 6. Now you can go to the 2-5-1. That's a 2-5-1. That's the version I showed you. But if you wanted to keep going, 7 to the 3, to the 6, to the 2, to the 5, then to the 1. All right, so this is a different approach when going from the 6 to the 2, to the 5, to the 1. You could just start off on the 6. From the 6 to the 2, to the 5, to the 1. Now, you're probably noticing that I'm doing something different off the 5. I'll explain that. But let's look at the 2. What I have is F sharp, B, and C in my left hand. And in my right hand, I have E, G sharp, and B. All right? Now, this chord can be used to get to the 5 when you're doing this particular chord. And I'll explain that, but what we have is an E major chord in my right hand. And how I get this chord is pretty much I count up a whole step from D, our bass note, which is also our 2. So that's how I get my right hand. So I have E, G sharp, and B. And my left hand is easy too as well. I figure out what's the tritone for D. And the tritone for D is F sharp and C. Now, a tritone is just a third and a flat 7th of whatever tone you're on. So since we're on D, the third of the D major scale is F sharp, and then the flat 7th of D is C. So we got a tritone in my left hand, and in my right hand, I have a major triad. So you just mix these two together, and that's how you get this chord. And then we go to the 5. Now, this chord off the 5 is very common when going from the 5 to the 1. And really what it is, it's like playing an F major 7 over G. Or really what you can do is, if you want to find this in any key, look a whole step down from the 5th tone, okay? We're going from the 2 to the 5 to the 1. So we're on the 5, which is G. Look a whole step down from G, and it's F. You will play an F major 7 over G. So in any key, if you are in the key of F, okay, and we're doing a 2-5-1, if you know what the 5 of F is C, right? And you wanted to know what type of chord would you play over that 5 to get back to the 1, you would count down a whole step down from C, and it's B flat. So you'll play a B flat major 7 in your right hand. All right, so that's just a quick concept. So from here, I think, okay, how can I make this even better? Well, you can take the concept from chord counting and think of it, okay, how can I make a F major 7, bigger? Well, for starters, you can take your left hand and play the F major 7. F, A, C, and E, you can play that in your left hand. And in your right hand, you can play a C major chord. Okay? So really, you can start with the root chord, which is the F major 7 in your right hand. And then whatever key you're in, which is C, that's the type of triad that you will play in your right hand. So let's go to F. Okay? The same concept works. Count a whole step down, and that's B flat. And then now we have a B flat major 7. And how do I find my right hand chord? What key are we in? We're in the key of F. So that's how I get that chord. Then go back to the 1. All right? So really, the 7, 3, 6, let's go back to the key of C. 7, 3, 6, 2, 5. Then you can stay on the 5 for a minute. This chord, then go back to the 1. Okay? All right, so let's look at another chord progression, the 5-1-4 chord progression, very common chord progression too. Okay? And we're going to go from the 5 to the 1 to the 4. And as you can see, going from G to C, that's a fourth away. We're going from C to F, that's a fourth away. Circle of fourths all the way. So off the 5, what we will do is play F, A, B flat, and D. And how I get this chord is because it's a minor chord. And what I'm playing is a G minor 9. So that's a version of that chord. And in my right hand, I'm playing F, A, and D. It's a different voicing of that. And I showed you how to voice this chord in chord counting. So I got F, A, B flat, and D in my left hand. And in my right hand, I have F, A, and D. So now when we get to the 1, we have E, A, B flat, and D. And G and C. You can either play this D with your thumb in your left hand, or you can play it with your right hand. Okay, so we got E, A, B flat, and then D, G, and C. So this is off the 1. So it's from the 5 to the 1 to the 4. And off the 4, we have E, G, A in my left hand, and in my right hand, C, E, A. And we know the 4 is going to be some type of major chord. So we got E, G, A. And I already showed you this chord too as well when we did the 1 to the 4 to the 5. Same voice. And remember when I talked about mixing the two chords together, from the mixing the A minor chord with the C major chord. Okay, that's all it really is a combination of these two chords. Okay, so we're going from the 5 to the 1 to the 4. Okay, and you can mix and match, you can play. It's up to you what type of voicing you want to use, but this is a variation of that particular chord progression, all right? Now another one I wanted to show you is a 3-6-2. And this is pretty much a lot of minor chords. Okay, the 3 is going to be minor. The 6 is going to be a 7 sharp, 9 sharp 5 chord. And then the 2 is going to be minor. So what we're going to play a type of E minor voicing. We have G, B, D, and F sharp on my left hand. Pretty much an E minor 9. Here's our 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. So we got the E minor 9 in my left hand, and in my right hand, I have a D major chord. A, D, and F sharp and A. And how I get this chord in my right hand is pretty much looking a whole step down from that, and it's D. So a whole step down from E will be D. And I play a D major triad. Then we go to a sharp 9, sharp 5 chord. So we got G, C, D, C sharp, and F, okay, in my left hand. And in my right hand, I have C, F, A, and C. This is over the A bass. Then we're gonna go to the 2. And I'm not really getting into how I created these voices because Chord County really got into how to create a lot of the voices. As long as you know what type of chords you're playing, if you're going to the 3, and you know it's minor, you know, you have a lot of options of inversions that you can do. Same here, if you go to the sharp 9, sharp 5 chord, I showed you a lot of different ways to voice that chord. Now we're going to the 2. And off the 2, I'm playing F, A, C, and E, a D minor 9 in my left hand. And in my right hand, the same concept that we used to find the chord over the E, we're gonna do that with the chord over this D. So remember, we started with the 7, and how I found the right hand chord, I said, okay, what's a whole step down from the E? It's D. So now we're on the D bass. And we could take the same concept by saying, what's a whole step down from D? And it's C. So that's how I find my right hand chord. So these are all the chord progressions that I really wanted to show you because really I just wanted to give you a more idea of how to figure out things with understanding voicings because really that's all it's going to really take. Once you learn the numbers, once you understand the patterns, the next thing to do will be how to use the voicings that you know to create a lot of different chord progressions, all right? So I'm going to close this section out. I'll see you in the next section.